There is a silence that falls when all the noise of striving fades, a hush at the center of the self, where ambition and hope collapse into themselves, like stars grown cold. In this quiet, the mind glimpses a truth too bare for most daylight. You are not ascending, not building toward any summit. You are turning, always in the same silent circle, prisoner of a wheel whose axis is suffering, whose circumference is longing. The human heart, restless and unsatisfied, is always searching, always reaching, like a moth circling a lantern that both warms and scorches. To be born is to inherit a wound, the wound of the will, gnawing and insatiable, forever desiring, forever unfulfilled. You wander through days as through a labyrinth, convinced that happiness waits at the center, while the very walls grow higher and the exits vanish into mist. This is not failure. This is the architecture of existence itself. Every pursuit is haunted by its own futility. You reach for love and find its shadow loss, jealousy, the terror of abandonment. You seek meaning and discover the emptiness beneath each constructed answer. You gather wealth and success, stacking bricks against the wind, but the storm always returns. The will sharpens its teeth on every disappointment, and suffering is the echo that grows louder in the hollow rooms of accomplishment. Society weaves its illusions with practiced hands, draping your eyes with banners that read, "Become, achieve, overcome." It calls you upward, but its staircase leads back upon itself, a Mobius strip of striving. Each promise happiness through possession, peace through status, love through obedience is a mirage conjured by the desert of desire. Modernity intensifies the chase, dressing it in the bright colors of technology and distraction. But the ache beneath the surface remains unchanged, ancient as the first sigh of longing in a newborn's cry. Suffering is not a punishment, nor a puzzle to be solved, but the elemental substance of life itself. The mind rebels against this, demanding consolation, seeking reasons and remedies. But in the end, pain is not accidental, not the rust on the machine, it is the machine. The will to live carries within itself the seeds of its own torment, and consciousness is the arena where these seeds grow wild, unstoppable, flowering into sorrow. To see this is not to despair, but to wake. The world is a hospital of wounded souls, each wrapped in the bandages of distraction, each hoping for a cure that never arrives. Some deny their illness with the feverish laughter of optimists. Others medicate themselves with spectacle and routine. But truth does not blink beneath the anesthesia. It waits, patient as the grave. In every pleasure, the shadow of pain already lurks. The sweetness of love carries the bitterness of loss. The pride of achievement trembles before the specter of failure and insignificance. Even hope itself is a double-edged knife. While it lifts, it also wounds. For to hope is to admit the absence of what one longs for, to keep open the wound that will not close. And so the circle spins, desire giving birth to pain, pain giving birth to new desires, an endless gyre with no center and no escape. The myth of progress lures you with its shimmering promise, that each day can be better than the last, that you are climbing a ladder towards some final perfection. But the rungs dissolve beneath your hands, and you find yourself always at the beginning, always just as empty, just as restless. The world spins onward, yet nothing is gained but age and regret. This is the quiet disaster of consciousness, the recognition that you are not moving forward, but only moving in place, like an animal in a cage, too small to turn around. There is a certain release in naming this, in facing the raw truth without ornament or excuse. The ancient philosophers knew, to live is to suffer, and the only wisdom is to see through the disguises, to understand that all striving is vain. The will is a fire that burns through all it touches, and every attempt to satisfy it only feeds its hunger. Happiness is not a destination, but a mirage, a trick of perspective, shimmering always just out of reach. Yet the mind continues to chase, refusing surrender. Culture fuels the pursuit, selling endless variations on the old theme. This finally will complete you. This job, this lover, this belief, this purchase. And so you leap from stone to stone, heart pounding with anticipation, each new possession or experience promising the relief that never comes. The will, once sated, soon grows hungry again. The circle tightens, the light dims, and you begin to sense the futility beneath the surface, a chill that seeps into your bones. At moments, when the noise recedes, you feel the weight of time like a shroud. The days stretch out, identical and indistinguishable, each one a repetition of the last. Even pleasure loses its savor when repeated, and novelty soon decays into routine. The promise of fulfillment is replaced by the certainty of weariness. The self, once so eager and hopeful, now regards the world with weary detachment, seeing in every glittering promise the seed of future disappointment. Society whispers, escape your pain, bury it beneath achievement, drown it in sensation, distract yourself with spectacle. But pain is patient, and no amount of distraction erases the knowledge at the heart of things. In the stillness of midnight, when the world grows silent and you are alone with your thoughts, suffering emerges from the shadows, uninvited and relentless. It is in these moments, when illusion fades, that you stand nearest to truth. Desire is not a visitor, it is the master of the house. It shapes your thoughts, directs your actions, molds your dreams. You believe yourself free, but you are chained by the invisible links of the will. Every choice is a repetition, every rebellion a circle drawn in dust. The world outside reflects the world within chaos, longing, frustration, endless becoming with never a being. You run, you strive, you consume, but the emptiness follows you, silent and faithful as a shadow. To name the futility is not to invite despair, but to see clearly for the first time. The world is not a story with a happy ending, but a field of suffering where meaning is carved from pain. The old myths of progress, of redemption, of triumph are comforting dreams, but dreams nonetheless. The truth waits outside the circle, cold and indifferent, watching as you spin. Perhaps there is a strange comfort here, a relief in surrendering the fever of hope. To accept suffering as the ground of existence is to cease the frantic search for escape. You become not resigned, but lucid. The self, stripped of illusions, becomes a vessel for awareness, silent and watchful. There is a certain peace in this emptiness, a clarity that dawns when all else is lost. Memory itself is a double-edged sword. The joys of yesterday become the sorrows of today. Every fond recollection carries within it the sting of loss, the ache of absence. Nostalgia is but another form of longing, a hunger for what can never return. The past recedes, the future remains unwritten, and the present is always slipping from your grasp. Time moves not as a river, but as a wheel, carrying you endlessly back to the place from which you began. In this repetition, the will grows weary, but it never dies. Even despair is but another movement of the same circle, another phase of longing. You dream of escape, of transcendence, but each attempt only deepens the sense of imprisonment. Religion, philosophy, art, all are attempts to break the circle, to rise above suffering, to find meaning in the void. Yet even these become rituals of longing, new forms of desire dressed in sacred robes. You watch the world and see the same dramas unfold, generation after generation. Love and betrayal, hope and disappointment, ambition and failure. The costumes change, the stages shift, but the script remains unchanged. Humanity, restless and unsatisfied, is forever spinning, forever chasing shadows. The wisdom of age is only the wisdom of repetition, the knowledge that there is nothing new beneath the sun, only new ways to suffer, new disguises for the old hunger. To stand outside the circle, to witness without judgment or resistance, is to glimpse the possibility of detachment, not the cold indifference of the cynic, but the quiet lucidity of one who no longer expects the world to fulfill what it cannot. Suffering loses its sting when seen in the light of necessity. You do not curse the rain for falling or the night for coming. You simply watch and endure. This clarity is not a prize, but a release. The ego, so desperate for meaning and recognition, dissolves into stillness. You are no longer the hero of the story, but the silent witness, the quiet awareness at the heart of the storm. There is no need to strive, to become, to achieve. All that remains is the steady pulse of being, the soft hush of surrender. Modernity multiplies distractions, offering endless amusements to dull the ache of existence. Screens flicker, music blares, advertisements scream their promises of relief. But beneath the din, the same old pain persists, unchanging and indestructible. No amount of noise can drown out the silent truth at the center of the self, that to live is to lack, and to lack is to suffer. The cult of self-improvement preaches that you are always one step away from happiness, that with enough effort you can finally escape your own nature. But the will is not a problem to be solved. It is the ground upon which all problems grow. The circle cannot be broken by effort alone, for every attempt at escape is itself another movement of the wheel. You climb, you fall, you climb again, and the landscape never changes. There is a kind of honesty in suffering, a clarity that strips away pretense and delusion. In pain, you see yourself most clearly naked, vulnerable, alone. The masks fall away, the stories dissolve, and all that remains is the raw fact of being. To dwell in this space is not to despair, but to abide. The world, with all its noise and fury, becomes distant, almost unreal. You watch, you breathe, you endure. What comfort is there, then, for the weary soul? Not the comfort of hope, nor the balm of illusion, but the strange peace that comes with acceptance. Suffering is not a failure, not a sign that something has gone wrong. It is the natural consequence of desire, the inevitable price of consciousness. To see this is to step outside the circle, if only for a moment, and watch as the wheel turns. The self, so long defined by its cravings and ambitions, begins to dissolve. You become a witness, a spectator to your own drama, watching as desires arise and fall, as pain blossoms and fades. There is no need to intervene, no need to escape. The world is what it is, indifferent, unyielding, vast. You are a ripple on its surface, a fleeting moment of awareness in an ocean of silence. Love, too, is tinged with sorrow, for to love is to expose oneself to loss, to open the heart to pain. Every attachment carries within it the seed of separation, every joy the certainty of its own end. Yet to refuse love is not to escape suffering, but only to choose another form of it: loneliness, isolation, the slow ache of emptiness. The will finds its way, one way or another, and suffering follows in its wake. Even the pursuit of truth is not immune to the circle. The desire to know, to understand, to see beneath the surface is itself an expression of the will. Each answer gives rise to new questions. Each insight deepens the sense of mystery. Knowledge accumulates, but wisdom remains elusive, always just out of reach. The world refuses to yield its secrets, and the mind, restless and unsatisfied, circles ever closer to the void. You sense, perhaps, a flicker of relief in this resignation. The frantic search for meaning grows quiet. The fever of hope cools. You watch as life unfolds, no longer demanding that it conform to your wishes. The world is neither friend nor enemy, but simply what it is, a stage upon which suffering plays out, a canvas painted in shades of longing and loss. In the end, there is nothing to gain, nothing to lose. The circle turns, indifferent to your hopes and fears. All striving dissolves into stillness, all longing into silence. You become not a participant, but a witness, a consciousness, adrift in an ocean of indifference. The world spins on, and you, at last, are free from the illusion of ascent. Here, at the edge of despair, there is a strange kind of grace. Not the grace of redemption or victory, but the grace of surrender, of seeing clearly and refusing to turn away. The circle remains, but you no longer chase its phantom promises. You watch, you endure, you become aware. The will, though persistent, is not immortal. It weakens with age, with disappointment, with the slow erosion of hope. What remains when the fire burns low is not emptiness, but clarity, a stillness that is neither joy nor sorrow, but something deeper, quieter. The self dissolves, the circle widens, and all that is left is awareness, silent and unmoved. You are not climbing, you are spinning in the same circle, tracing the same lines in the dust. The world offers no escape, no final answer, only the slow turning of the wheel. To see this is to awaken, if only for a moment, to the cold beauty of truth. Suffering is not the enemy, it is the teacher, the silent companion on the journey through night. In its presence, all illusions fall away, and you are left alone with what is. The circle turns, desire wanes, and in the stillness that follows, you find the peace that comes not from victory, but from surrender. Let the world spin. Let desire rise and fall. You are not the climber, not the hero, not the victor. You are the witness, the awareness, the silent observer at the heart of the storm. In the end, all things dissolve into stillness, and the circle fades into silence. Here, in this quiet, there is nothing more to say, nothing more to seek. The candle burns low, the shadows lengthen, and all that remains is the hush of truth, waiting in the darkness. In the half-light where longing curls in silence, one sees that every promise of relief is only the shadow of pain in another form. The heart invents, escapes through pleasure, through certainty, through the brief warmth of companionship, yet each is revealed, sooner or later, to be the mirror image of what was sought to be left behind. The joy of arrival is already weighted with the sorrow of parting. In all things, absence stands just behind the curtain of presence, patient, unhurried, unyielding. The world, admired in moments of calm, is not a realm of endless possibility, but a theater of recurrence faces, names, sensations, cycling through the corridors of memory, echoing with old hungers in new disguises. Every pleasure, sweet upon the tongue, dazzling to the senses, fades into weariness. The will, having pressed itself forward, recoils in disappointment, only to reach again, unable to rest. The hours repeat with the inevitability of tides, each carrying a new version of the same old yearning. To suffer is to be stripped of illusion, to see the bones of the world without ornament. The pain that returns in quiet moments is not a flaw, but the ground itself, the unyielding surface upon which all things move. In its gaze, every justification and hope dissolves into smoke. You find no explanation that can soften the truth. Life is not a problem to be solved, nor a story to be understood. It is the ceaseless urge of the will to exist, to want, to mourn. Desire multiplies its masks, slipping from one shape to another, but the ache at its center does not change. A new passion, a new pursuit, a new dream. The will fans the flames, yet the ashes always return. Even the chase after wisdom, the longing for clarity, is but another thread in the fabric of the same longing. Knowledge is amassed, but its weight brings no release. The questions deepen, the mystery grows denser, and the circle tightens. There is nowhere to stand outside the storm of the self. One senses the futility most sharply in moments of forced stillness, when the distractions subside and only the silent witness remains. The mind turns to its own emptiness, seeking comfort in memory or anticipation, yet finding only the cold echo of what cannot be possessed. The past is unreachable, the future uncertain, and the present already vanishing. This is the tragedy of consciousness, to know that every joy is temporary, every form fragile, every promise destined to break upon the rocks of time. Illusion is the cloak the will draws around itself, a shroud woven from habit, routine, and the soft narcotic of hope. The world participates in the conspiracy, providing endless diversions, games, rituals, spectacle, the pursuit of novelty. Yet, behind every mask of satisfaction, a deeper emptiness lurks, the silent certainty that nothing gained can ever be enough. The self is never completed, never at rest. It spins, hungry and afraid, searching for a quiet it cannot find. In rare moments, clarity pierces through. One sees that every attempt to fill the void only deepens it, that every step forward is another turn around the same center. The old dreams collapse, the promises of youth dissolve. There is a release in letting go, in allowing the emptiness to be what it is. No longer seeking rescue, the heart falls silent. The world goes on spinning, indifferent and unchanging, and in this indifference, a peculiar kind of freedom is born. Detachment is not coldness, but a gentle refusal to believe the stories the will tells. It is the soft gaze that neither clings nor resists, that lets sorrow wash through without protest. The drama of existence loses its urgency. Joy and grief alike become passing weather. To stand apart is not to escape suffering, but to cease struggling against its tide. There is no victory, only the quiet dignity of endurance, the stillness of a mind that has ceased to hope for rescue. The self, so long at the center of its own universe, becomes a shadow among shadows. Identity loses its sharp edges. The boundaries between self and world grow thin. What remains is awareness mute, persistent, unmoved. All things pass through this field of stillness, coming and going, leaving no trace. The world, so heavy with meaning, becomes light as a feather. Desire falls away, not through force, but through exhaustion. Suffering persists, but it is no longer the enemy. It is the weather of the soul, the slow rhythm of breathing in the dark. To see this is to understand that peace does not arrive as a gift, nor as a conquest, but as a byproduct of surrender. All that was urgent grows quiet, all that was vital becomes dust. You remain silent, watching as the circle spins, feeling the last tremors of longing dissolve into the hush of being. There is a strange intimacy in suffering, a knowledge more personal than any joy. Each pain is solitary, unshared even when spoken aloud. The world may acknowledge the shape of your grief, but the substance is yours alone. The silence inside, where sorrow circles and thickens, is a landscape without witness. Here, consolation is no more than a distant echo, a faint warmth that cannot pierce the marrow of loneliness. How quietly the will creates the illusion of purpose, how deftly it weaves meaning from accident, hope from habit. It is not a malicious deception, but a necessity born of emptiness. Without illusion, the nakedness of being would burn too bright to bear. The mind invents destinations where there are only crossroads, promises of arrival where there is only perpetual wandering. Yet beneath every imagined endpoint lies the familiar chill of recurrence, the sense that nothing is ever truly gained or kept. You look upon others and see the same restless hunger in different guises. The hurried speech, the anxious laughter, the ceaseless measuring of worth and progress. Everyone turns in their own orbit, believing their circle to be a path. Ambition disguises itself as hope, achievement as fulfillment. But in the quiet aftermath, there is always the dull return, the feeling that everything at its core remains unfinished. To detach is not to judge, nor to rise above, but simply to witness. One becomes the observer of longing, the listener at the wellspring of pain. You hear the quiet pleading of the will, the endless rehearsal of old desires, and let them pass through without grasping. The world's parade of spectacle loses its power to seduce. Suffering remains, but its fangs are blunted by exposure, its urgency reduced to a gentle ache. There is nothing to escape, nothing to pursue, only the slow dissolution of all urgency. Sometimes a memory arrives, unbidden, and for a moment the old illusion flickers the thought that life once held the possibility of satisfaction. But memory is unreliable, warped by longing and loss. It selects its details to soothe the will, to suggest that the past was kinder than the present, that happiness is something misplaced rather than absent. The truth presses through. Every joy was always laced with anxiety, every success shadowed by fear of its own undoing. Even the closest bonds are haunted by this law of impermanence. Love becomes another circuit of desire, first intoxicating, then anxious, finally heavy with the dread of separation or indifference. The hope for union is always undermined by the reality of distance, the impossibility of merging two solitudes. Each soul remains an island, surrounded by the dark water of its own longing. There are moments, rare and brief, when the weight of striving falls away, when the will slackens and a hush settles over the mind. These are not moments of triumph, but of surrender, a cessation rather than a culmination. It is then, in the bare space between desires, that the world appears as it is, unadorned, indifferent, silent, no promise, no threat, just a blank canvas of existence. In such moments, detachment is not a philosophy, but a fact. You are neither apart from suffering nor consumed by it, but suspended, untouched. The circle still turns, but you have ceased to identify with its motion. The stories you once told yourself lose their meaning, and with their passing comes a fragile clarity. All things come, all things go, and nothing is owed to anyone. The more one sees, the less one needs to explain. The world does not yield to reason, nor does it answer to hope. Existence is a brute fact, indifferent to human meaning, immune to all pleading. The mind, once inflamed by the desire to understand, grows calm in the face of this futility. There is no final word, no conclusion to be reached, only the ongoing, ceaseless turn of longing into pain and pain into longing. So the days pass, neither hopeful nor tragic, but marked by a deepening silence. The theater of desire continues, the actors unchanged, the play unending. You sit in the audience now, no longer mistaking the drama for reality, no longer moved by the promise of a different ending. The curtain rises and falls, and you remain silent, watchful, unmoved. The circle spins, suffering persists. Illusion fades, detachment grows, not as armor, but as the quiet acceptance that there is nothing else. All that is left is awareness, a presence without desire, a silence without grief. The self dissolves, the world goes on, and you linger in the hush that follows the last echo of longing. The hush deepens as the circle completes its motion, not with fanfare, but with the gentle exhaustion of all things spent. Night stretches out its unbroken fabric, unrolling across thought and memory alike. The world, stripped of color and meaning, becomes again a mute landscape, shapes in shadow, soundless and indifferent. No expectation lingers. Every wish falls still in the air, dust motes sinking through a shaft of moonlight. The will, once fevered and insistent, lies quiet, a faint warmth in a cooling body. The self stands at the edge, gazing out at the emptiness it once feared. There is no threat here, only the neutral face of what is, the world indifferent, the seasons unhurried, time unbending and unmoved by human ache. Every longing, every plan, every frantic grasp after certainty is seen for what it always was, ripples upon a pond whose surface soon forgets every disturbance. The ache of desire softens into the slow breathing of endurance. There is no more story to defend, no meaning left to invent. To witness suffering without protest is to reach the final discipline. You watch as pain flows through, neither clinging nor fleeing, simply observing its path. Each sorrow, unmasked, is revealed as a movement in the wind, transient as breath, neither blessing nor curse. What remains is not triumph, but transparency, a soul as thin as mist, through which the world passes, leaving nothing caught, nothing lost. Loss, the silent companion of all beauty, draws near and sits at your side. What was loved fades, what was feared dissolves, what was desired grows weightless in the hand. There is no bargaining left, no plea for rescue, only the strange quiet that comes when hope finally bows to necessity. Even grief becomes translucent, a shape barely visible in the distance, already surrendering its urgency. The hunger that once defined you recedes, leaving behind a hollow that is neither full nor empty. You move through rooms, through landscapes, through faces, untouched by the old restlessness. The mind no longer projects a future, no longer replays a past, only the pulse of this moment, indifferent, unadorned. You become the listener in an empty hall, the watcher of a sky emptied of birds. Stillness, at last, seeps into the marrow. There is no judgment left, no need to explain or forgive. Suffering persists, but it is gentle, like rain on old stone. The world, stripped of illusion, no longer asks to be loved or feared. It simply is, immense and silent, outlasting all questions. The self, grown transparent, watches its own dissolution with a kind of relief. Nothing is left to be done. The wheel turns, and you, once a frantic spark within it, have grown calm in its spinning. Not indifference, but acceptance, a return to the quiet before hope, before will. Shadows lengthen and merge. Desire exhales its last breath, and awareness rests, empty as the sky at midnight. There are no words to finish what was never truly begun. The circle closes, leaving no mark, no echo, only the silence that follows when longing dies away. The candle gutters, the watcher dissolves. Night endures, patient and endless, carrying with it the faint, fading trace of a soul released from all becoming.